I knew you were right, and I still let you walk out that door.
Yeah, you did.
I was scared, Marcus. I chose the wrong thing.
My daughter needed lunch money today, remember that?
She fired him at 9 a.m., then showed up soaking wet at his door at midnight. She fired him at 9 a.m., then showed up soaking wet at his door at midnight. Marcus Webb had always believed that doing the right thing would eventually cost him everything. He just didn't expect it to happen on a Tuesday. He had worked at Hargrove Financial for 6 years. 6 years of early mornings, missed school plays, and cold dinners eaten alone after his daughter Zoe had already fallen asleep. He had built the company's mid-tier client portfolio from the ground up, turning a struggling department into one of the firm's most profitable divisions. He knew those numbers better than he knew his own reflection, but Marcus also knew something else, something that had been keeping him up at night for the past 3 weeks. The senior partners were funneling client funds into a private shell account, small amounts at first, then larger ones, carefully hidden beneath layers of coded transfers that most analysts would never catch. But Marcus wasn't most analysts. He had brought it to his direct supervisor, Daniel Reyes, in private. Daniel had looked at the documents, looked at Marcus, and then quietly slid the folder back across the desk. "You didn't see this," Daniel had said. Marcus picked up the folder and walked straight to the office of Victoria Hargrove, CEO, founder, and the woman who had personally hired him 6 years ago with a firm handshake and the words,
"I don't hire talent, I invest in it." He laid everything out, every transaction, every date, every name.
Victoria had listened without blinking. Her expression never changed. The same composed, unreadable face she wore in every board meeting. When he finished speaking, she folded her hands on the desk and said 6 words that he would never forget. "I'll need your badge by 5. Marcus had stared at her. "I just handed you proof of, thank you for your service, Mr. Webb." He packed one box. He didn't say goodbye to anyone. He picked up Zoe from school 2 hours early, took her to get ice cream, and sat across from his 7-year-old daughter while she talked excitedly about her science project, completely unaware that her father's entire world had just collapsed around him. That night, after Zoe was in bed, Marcus sat at his kitchen table with a cup of coffee that went cold and the quiet weight of a man who had done everything right and still lost. He wasn't angry. He was tired. He called his mother, who told him God had a plan. He called his best friend Darnell, who told him to lawyer up. He pulled up his bank account, looked at 3 months of savings, thought about rent and Zoe's school and groceries, and made a decision. He would figure it out. He always did. It was 11:47 p.m. when the knocking started. Marcus was still at the kitchen table, half asleep over a half-finished resume when the sound cut through the quiet of the house. Sharp, urgent, almost frantic. He was on his feet before he was fully awake, moving to the door with the careful instinct of a single father who knew that nothing good came knocking past midnight. He looked through the peephole. Victoria Hargrove was standing on his porch in the pouring rain. She was soaked to the bone. Her expensive blazer plastered against her arms, her dark hair collapsed against her face, her mascara running in thin black lines down her cheeks. She wasn't knocking anymore. She was pressing one hand flat against his door like she was trying to hold herself up. Marcus opened the door. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Rain hammered the porch behind her. A streetlight caught the water on her face, and Marcus realized with a jolt of something he hadn't expected that she had been crying. "I need to talk to you," she said. Her voice was different. The boardroom composure was gone. What was left underneath it was something raw, something that sounded almost like fear. "You fired me," he said flatly. "I know." She closed her eyes briefly. "I know I did. And I need you to understand why. And I need you to help me anyway. Because right now you're the only person I trust." Marcus leaned against the doorframe and looked at her. Really looked at her, for the first time. Not as his CEO. Not as the woman who had ended his career in 6 cold words. Just as a person standing alone in the rain at midnight, out of options. "Come inside," he said. "Before you catch pneumonia on my porch." She sat at his kitchen table, the same table where he'd been eating cold dinners for 6 years, wrapped in an old sweatshirt he pulled from the hall closet, her hands around the mug of coffee he put in front of her without being asked. She told him everything. The shell account wasn't just fraud. It was embezzlement tied to a federal case that had been quietly building for 2 years. A case that the senior partners had been tipped off about 3 weeks ago. They had been systematically moving funds, covering tracks, and preparing to let the company take the fall while they quietly disappeared. Victoria had known about the tip-off. She hadn't known the full scope of what they were doing. Not until Marcus had laid it out in front of her that morning. "When you walked into my office," she said quietly, "I panicked. I didn't fire you because I thought you were wrong. I fired you because I was terrified of what it meant if you were right." Marcus was quiet for a moment. "So why are you here?" he asked. She looked up at him. "Because I went back to the files after you left. I verified everything. And then I realized that the only person in that entire building who cared enough to walk into my office with the truth, knowing exactly what it would cost him, was you." She paused. "And I let you walk out." The rain had softened outside. Down the hallway, Marcus could hear the small sounds of Zoe sleeping, the creak of her bed, the faint sound of the nightlight he always left on. "I have a daughter," he said. "She's 7. I have 3 months of savings and a resume I haven't updated in 6 years. I know. I did the right thing and you threw me out. I know." Her voice cracked slightly on the second word. She didn't look away. Marcus stood up. He walked to the window and looked out at the wet street for a long moment, the kind of moment where a man is deciding not just what to do, but what kind of man he wants to be. He thought about Zoe, about the conversation he wanted to have with her one day about integrity, about what it meant to stand for something even when it cost you. He turned back around. "Here's what we're going to do," he said. "Tomorrow morning, you're going to call the federal investigators directly. I'm going to walk back into that building with you. Not as your employee, but as your witness. We document everything, we hand it over, and we let the law handle the rest." Victoria stared at him. "After what I did to you today, you'd still—" "I'm not doing it for you," Marcus said simply. "I'm doing it because it's right. And because my daughter is asleep down that hall, and I want her to grow up in a world where doing the right thing means something." Victoria was quiet for a long time. Then she nodded, slowly, like a woman remembering what it meant to trust someone. "I'll reinstate you," she said. "Full salary, back pay for today, and a formal apology on the record." Marcus almost smiled. "We'll talk about that later." He poured her a second cup of coffee, and outside the rain began to ease, slowly at first, then softer, then almost gentle, like the city itself had been holding its breath and was finally ready to let it go. Some people do the right thing because they're watching. Marcus Webb did it because no one was. And that, in the end, was the only kind of courage that ever changed anything.